However, meditating is bringing awareness and presence to yourself and to your surroundings. So for me, it's always coming back to the senses. So the chocolate dreaming or the cacao ceremony that I did with you is really the foundation is around our senses. So connecting in with the five senses we have, they're tangible and they're like activating what we are and the humanness. And the more we tap into our sense of smell, what do we smell around us, or what can we taste, or what are the feelings? Can we feel the wind on our skin? What can we hear? What can we see? The colors. That's really bringing us into the present moment. And that is, for me, that is the most spiritual experience we can be having.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. Today, we are joined by an incredible human, as we always are, but today's guest is a very, very special soul, Kyle Laz, up on Mount Tamborine is it the Gold Coast or Brisbane, Kyle?
It's Gold Coast. It's actually so the hinterlands of the Gold Coast, you could say.
Hinterland, okay, amazing. So, ladies and gents, Kyle is first and foremost, Kyle is known as the Chocolate Wizard. I remember we were in an event together and I heard people talking about the Chocolate Wizard. I was like, who is it? I knew you as a Chocolate Wizard even before I knew you was Kyle, which was really cool. And Kyle is a medical herbalist, consultant and facilitator. Kyle integrates herbs, wellness, sound healing, breath work, and of course, cacao to support people transform their life. Kyle, thank you so much for being here today, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Nash. It's great to be here. Yeah, really
amazing. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation since, actually at the event, I think I mentioned I wanted you on the podcast. I actually got to experience your incredible cacao ceremony that you held at an event we were at together on the Gold Coast. And it was interesting. Even last weekend, I was talking to a mate about that experience. It was probably one of the more spiritual things I've done in my life, to be very honest with you, brother. So I know you've got so much wisdom, but I'd love just to get to know you. Like, let's just get to know Kyle, and really what gets Kyle out of bed in the morning? What inspires Kyle the most?
Wow, that's a big question. And I think to summarize, like what gets man out of bed is life, really. And just really, really experiencing it. And a big passion of mine is plants and what the plants do for us, from, waking up, hearing the birds in the trees, to medicinal herbs, to more of the spiritual transformational plants, to then even playing music with plants, and really, really sound and creating from that space, creating things from nature, whether that's from the forest and from nature, or from within my own nature of creating music or writing, or just all the creativity, really.
Yeah, I love that. And what got you into this? Like, what called you to this work in particular? Have you always been this kind of guy, or was there?
Well, I've always, from a young age, thought about the unknown. Like what's on the other side of life. I lost my father at a young age, and that sparked, having that having a father on the other side, if you like, and really questioning religion. I came from quite a Catholic background growing up, and then going through school and finishing school, just seeking out what it is that I wanted to do, kind of following what people say you should do, and what you should do was studying. And it wasn't until I dropped out of uni, I was studying engineering, that I took 6 months off. And it was at that stage that I started to look at what do I really enjoy doing. And at that stage, it was really partying, smoking, getting high, those things at 18. When I took time out, all my friends were still studying. I was like, okay, well, I do love studying. So I started to study cannabis. And then that led me into seeing all these different herbs and how far back this plant goes. And my mum's a a massage therapist, aromatherapist, always used homeopathic. So that natural medicine was always in my field. So after a bit of research, I actually then went, oh, what if I research to study this? And then that led me onto a path of studying a Bachelor in Health Science, to become a qualified herbalist. And during that time, I also was lucky enough to get a job at this really cool little boutique herb shop called the Happy Herb Shop. You may have heard of it. I think there's one in Tassie. There's at one stage there's one in almost.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of the Happy Herb Shop. I don't know if it's still here in Tassie anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they are, but during that time I studied, the science of herbs and health, and then I was working at this little, you can call it like a hippie store, if you like. However, what they were teaching there was more of the traditional uses of plants and the appreciation of plants, whether it's for energy or health or relaxation, such as like sleep or aphrodisiacs. So I got this really nice balance of the scientific facts and then the things that they kind of don't teach you at university as well.
Yes.
And from that, that really was mainly my passion around there, was learning to live, because I realized through going through school and being in university that no one actually taught me how to live or what to eat or how to heal myself or use any of these things. So my whole passion along that journey was learning to live. And then, from there, I took a couple years of I did a pilgrimage in Europe. I did the Camino. That was quite opening for me as well, just being by myself, walking in a lot of the European herbs or the herbs that I had studied. So actually seeing these plants along the path, along the way that I walked, and being able to heal myself on the way just from plants that I saw from there.
Wow.
Was really being able to utilize and speaking to people from around the world, walking the same path with their own special gifts and realizing that not everyone knew about the plants. So when I came back, that's when I really got the, inspiration to start something, to create something. Because back then I was kind of more just flowing with the wind, and, people let me stay places, and I finally got a place and I was like, cool, I'm going to set up, start doing consultations. And it was at that stage that I learned about chocolate and how to make it from raw ingredients of cacao, and could see that cacao is a herb. And it was at that point that I was like, wow, I love chocolate and I've never seen it as a plant before. So as soon as I saw that, I straight away started mixing herbs that I was already mixing into teas and into tinctures, into the chocolate. And that led me, what I say is like the start of my chocolate wizard initiation, where that path unlocked a whole lot. And that was really that chocolate's this platform to share about plants and to share about the earth. So that journey has taken me to many different places, also studying a number of different modalities, from like being a Reiki master, massage, different sound healing modalities, as well as like NLP and coaching. So I went to the point of like having a whole business that I had my chocolate in like 60 stores around Australia. Kind of went through that whole business, not really having a business structure, and getting again to that point of, everyone says I should be in all the stores. I'm in all the stores. And it was at that point, at the peak of that, where I felt empty. And I was like, well, what is it all actually for when I'm just, in the lab making chocolate all the time? And it was at that point I actually stopped. I just canceled all the distribution. And I went back to working in a health food store as a herbalist, and found that there's so many people that were, suffering from depression and anxiety, and were on like pharmaceuticals, wanting to get off them. So I started helping people in that field, and realizing, wow, I really I'm needed in person as well. So that started a new chapter more on the coaching, and then have again built that up. And now I do have I have a secret chocolate society where I send my chocolates to. And I also have Flower of Life Cacao with a dear brother of mine, which is a We like to call like an innovative cacao company with high performance and great taste. So that's my main focus now, and then also doing some coaching and sound healing, and also teaching people about how to facilitate cacao and sound and breath. So yeah, it's all comes together.
Brother, it's music to my ears hearing you talk about this. I'm not sure. I think I mentioned, when we had a conversation, I trained as a combat medic in the military. And so obviously part of my role was, I got trained to administer different, I guess, drugs to people. And part of my role was actually giving people, making sure their vaccines are up to date before they went on deployments and all that great stuff. And so I've sort of I worked in hospitals for a bunch of years. So I've seen that side of things and I can appreciate that. But when I worked there, it was interesting, Kyle. It was actually like something was missing. Like I knew there was something missing. It was something that just was not clicking. And now when still some of what you're saying is still very new to me, I'll be honest. But I know it to be true. Like I've heard so many people, in the past 7 years as I've been moving into this work and coaching around the people around the world, I'm hearing these conversations. I'm hearing the benefits people are getting from this work. And I'm hearing how integrating these different forms of medicine and, connecting with the earth on that deeper level, the way you are, it's just truly transformational for people. And I feel like it's something it's still very, I feel like there's a lot of confusion around it. Like, to be honest with you, Kyle, even hearing the word, like hearing you talk about herbs, like in the past, my mind would have gone straight to, oh, that's people getting high. Like this is no joke. Like that's actually how my mind would have been. Like for anyone who is where I was maybe 7 years ago, when you talk about herbs, what do you mean? Like if you could articulate on that a bit.
Yeah, I'd love to. And it's interesting because at this herb shop that I worked at, so many people would come in and go like, does any of this stuff work?
Yeah.
And all people would be like, oh, you're getting high. So like I've spoken to thousands of people from this, and even especially the younger kids would come in and be like, does any of this stuff get you high? Like, does any of this natural stuff work? And I'd be like, well, what have you been high on? And they'd be like, oh, well, marijuana gets me high. And I'm like, so where does marijuana come from? And they're like, oh, well, it's a tree and it's a herb. And each herb has its own personality. It has its own phytochemistry. So when I talk about herbs, it's a broad spectrum of plants that have been used for healing. And if in today's culture, we can really look at it as what were the traditional uses of the plants. And then in today's society, we have the scientific evidence. So when we're looking more at the phytochemistry, so what chemicals are contained in plants. So if we do look at cannabis, we've got like THC, CBD, and all the derivatives of that, which is starting to hit the medical system. And if we look at things like opium for pain, which you'd know about in the military that they would use, that comes from the opium poppy, right? Yeah, and then there's so when we look at the drug concept with herbs, we can see that almost every drug comes from a plant.
Yes, so true.
So there's when we follow it back, there's essentially potentiating the herbs to make drugs. And that's a really interesting thing about plants, is that I don't want to get too out there, but if we look into the pharmaceutical companies and patenting their products, that's kind of where herbs have been pushed out. And you can kind of look traditionally also where like the witches got burnt and those type of things. So when I talk about herbs, I'm talking about even chamomile or peppermint or oregano. So oregano on pizza, it's a really great antibacterial, antifungal. Or peppermint tea is really great for your respiratory tract. What else? The chamomile is really great relaxant, great for the nervous system. They call it the water of youth. So some people think of chamomile and just think of their grandma drinking chamomile, and they shouldn't be drinking it. However, I say drink lots of chamomile, especially in this time of stress. So
wow.
mean, then we can go into more the high performance herbs, like the ones that we put in our flower black cacao, like rhodiola rosea, which is a herb from Siberia, which is known as an adaptogen. That's the more like scientific term. So it's a substance that increases adaptation to stress.
Yeah.
So traditionally, this was used by shamans and medicine people in Siberia. And when it came to the Western world, was actually through the Russian government during, I think it was World War II, they started researching plants when America was researching chemicals. So chemicals to enhance like the amphetamines and all those things to keep their soldiers up. The Russians started to look at natural things.
Wow.
And because things like the ginseng in China were already, the price was up, they started doing all this research, and all this class of herbs came out called adaptogens. So this is rhodiola, schisandra, Siberian ginseng. So it's really thanks to the Russian government for studying those herbs that these herbs are available to us now. And the beautiful thing about these plants is they don't know the exact mechanism. So they can't go, this chemical acts on this, but overall we call it like tonics. So we're talking about Mason before with the medicinal mushrooms and how they tonify the body. So they give a general overall feeling of well-being. And really it's about preventative medicine. Or so nourishing ourselves. It's not we get sick and then we go to a doctor. We can take these things to support our body so we can thrive, really.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow.
I think that summarizes the herbs. And obviously there's herbs for the spirit, there's herbs for the mind, there's herbs for the body. So there's a whole lot of realms we can go into within that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was beautifully, summarized and broken down. So thank you for speaking into that. A huge part of what I do through this podcast is like I shared with you, it's trying to give people more options in life, more options, more vehicles to live a thriving existence. And there are so many options out there that I feel like a lot of people close themselves off to because of some, past indoctrination or something that got passed on to them, and they've never actually stopped and considered it for themselves. And sometimes the beliefs people have and the perceptions people have is enough to just hold them back from even exploring it a little bit. And I think that's, that can create one kind of experience. But, when we have an open mind and we're willing to have these conversations and explore it, beautiful things open up. So I'm really glad that you're here educating us, Kyle. I really appreciate it so much. I just want to talk a little bit about the experience I had at your cacao ceremony, because that was, again, a hugely spiritual. I was actually, sharing with my dear friend. It was one of the most spiritual things I've ever experienced, like, just to be very honest with you. I've grown up, in churches and all this stuff, but like you can't deny the feeling when you have it. I'll say that. Of that deep spiritual connection of that. And I remember how you created this space, like you created this sacred space. And then we all moved into that. And I'm not going to go into details of exactly what you did, but some of it was just savoring the flavor of the beautiful chocolate that you make and, trying those beautiful different herbs that you put within that and just experiencing that in the body. And then I remember you got us to lie down and then you were playing the different sounds. And then you had the didgeridoo as well. Like that, you've got so many skills. It's very impressive with the different sounds. Things like when I look at the cacao ceremony you did, Kyle, like I see that as so healing for people. If people aren't in situations where they have access to that right now, so let's imagine someone that's at home being locked down, listening to this right now, what can they start doing to kind of integrate more of these spiritual practices into their life? Do you have anything you could recommend?
Yeah, well, for me, when we're talking about spiritual or spirit, I always think of being inspired, being in spirit, or even taking a breath. So for me, when it's in people to incorporate, I really enjoy when I work with my clients and people to really simplify it to like tangible actions. So simply like going into meditation, where I also do feel like meditation needs to be reworded because it can also have this a connotation of I can't do that. However, meditating is bringing awareness and presence to yourself and to your surroundings. So for me, it's always coming back to the senses. So the chocolate dreaming or the cacao ceremony that I did with you is really the foundation is around our senses. So connecting in with the five senses we have, and they're tangible and they're like activating what we are and the humanness. And the more we tap into our sense of smell, what do we smell around us, or what can we taste, or what are the feelings? Can we feel the wind on our skin? What can we hear? What can we see? The colors. That's really bringing us into the present moment. And that is, for me, that is the most spiritual experience we can be having. So for a bit of advice for someone at home would definitely be to look into meditation, to even if it's just when you go outside, what can you hear and what can you see, and bring yourself into that present body, like into your presentness in your body. And moving more into like utilizing plants and things like that. I think the simple practice of smelling your food before you eat it, smelling your tea before you drink it, or your coffee, because everyone loves coffee, right? I think it's between coffee and chocolate, like there's this like fine line. But before you have your coffee, have a smell of it and bring to mind what you're going to do before you do it. So that would be like setting an intention. So that would be that bit of advice for me. Every now and then I do like sound healings through my Facebook, Instagram, and also sometimes like chocolate dreamings where people can use chocolate or cacao, like they don't have to use mine. So there's also that people can check out when that's available.
Amazing. Where do people find that, Kyle? Just out of curiosity.
So you can look up Kyle Laz 7 on Instagram. Also Kyle Laz on Facebook, and you'll find me on there.
Phenomenal.
So yeah, that would be my advice. The thing that I found the most interesting is music as well, like tapping into sound, relaxation. This also has a great scientific backing of listening to relaxation. Music allows you to relax. And if you listen to like heavy metal, it's going to make you more like high vibing.
For sure.
Yeah. So taking time to really listen to yourself. And the simplest way I can say of meditation is you can sit, listen to the sounds around, and have a moment where you can just connect in with this heart that's, being hugged by your lungs, and just feel that essence of yourself. And if it is that wonder of like, what is it that actually makes my heart beat? And that can be a bit of like an inspiration of like, whoa, there's more than what's just presented to us.
That's huge, isn't it? Like just those little moments, and exactly what you said, there's more than what's just presented to us, because that's where people get so trapped in life. Like they're so stuck in the happenings to the point they disconnect from really the bigger picture. So I love what you're talking about here. It's truly powerful. On the sound side of things, so I was checking out your Instagram not so long ago, and I think it was a live you did, and you had like a little device plugged into a plant, like a cacao plant, I think it was. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I was kind of blown away. I was like, is that legit? The plant was playing music. Yeah,
that's right.
That's the thing. So what is, and you have to pardon my ignorance, but this is true. This is where I'm at. Is that happening with all plants? Like this one behind me, is that playing music right now?
Well, that is a really good question, because if we look at the scientific model of everything's made up of atoms, let's not go beyond smaller than atoms, but there's an atom, right, with a neutron and a proton and an electron spinning around it. So there are these cycles. So cycles mean it's vibrating.
Yes.
So when we look at the the base level, everything's in vibration, everything's in a state of flux.
Yes.
And if everything is vibrating, then it's giving off a sound, whether we can hear it or not.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
That's on the microcosm. We've got the electron. On the macrocosm, we have the planets orbiting the sun. So if we look back at people like Plato, they were talking about hearing the sounds of the spheres. So being able to hear the sounds of the different planets as they moved around the galaxy. So
wow.
In between that, we have our cells. So our liver might sound different to our heart, and a healthy liver might sound different to a fatty liver. So when we're talking about songs and music playing, there's that spectrum. Like we look at the electromagnetic spectrum, we've got so much sound that is out there, and there's only a small portion we can hear.
Yes.
Same as light. There's all this light, and we can only see a small portion. So
Yeah.
we're not seeing everything that is, and we're not hearing everything that is.
Mm-hmm.
So is that plant singing? I think everything is singing all the time.
Wow.
And the device that I have has essentially like some of the technology to a lie detector where it can pick up changes in electrical impulses within the plant. So it's not tapping into the plant and the plant's singing a song as such. It's kind of like plugging the plant into an instrument. So for me, I play the didgeridoo, and when I'm playing the didgeridoo, you can hear the sound of the didgeridoo, and I play the didgeridoo like I play the didgeridoo.
Yeah.
So when you plug the plant in, I can choose what synthesizer or what sounds I want the plant to play, and the plant will play it.
Wow.
So if the song is, it sounds the same, kind of like didgeridoos sound the same, but if you really listen, every didgeridoo player plays a didgeridoo differently.
Got it.
You get what I mean? So
I do.
yeah,
Wow.
for people who want to look more into this, there's a book. It was written in, I think it was in like the 70s, called The Secret Life of Plants. It's a great book. It's got a lot of scientific information there, where a guy who was studying lie detectors was the first person to change it up, to hook it up to a plant, and notice that plants give off different signals. And he did a number of different tests on the plants. One particular one that is really seated in my mind is he had two plants in a room, and all his colleagues, he got together and he got them to draw straws. So no one knew who got the shortest straw, and they all had access to the building. And that night, the person with the shortest straw had to go back to the place and murder one of the plants. So went into the room, there's two plants, grabbed one of it, snapped it, really like quite violently, destroyed it, stomped on it, and then left. And the next day, the researcher hooked up the other plant, and one by one, in and out, he got all his colleagues to walk in and out. And when the person that killed the other plant walked in, the plant gave off a reading.
Wow.
So it was this idea of like that plants do have consciousness, and there is a way to tap into that.
That is incredible. Wow. Thank you for sharing that example. That's very, very clear cut. All right. So they don't need to be tapping phones anymore. They can just tap plants from now on.
Yeah. Well, hopefully more people would tap plants. And I do like the idea of like the plants playing. And what I have noticed is the plants that I do connect in and allow to play, even if I'm just doing some work, they seem to grow faster and be more healthy than the other plants. And I've also noticed that some house plants of other people, when I connect it up, the plant doesn't sing straight away. It doesn't give off anything.
Really?
And I kind of like sit there with it and maybe like tone a little bit, breathe, and the plant will slowly start to play and be like, oh, was that me? And like the sound's kind of on and off.
Okay.
And my perception of that is that some houseplants out there, and maybe the plant behind you, it's like, how much are people interacting with their plants?
Mhm.
Or how much do they just see it as a piece of furniture? And then do the plants take that on because they're part of our realm? So it's really like with the herbal plants or the medicinal plants that I have, when I hook them up, they just start singing straight away. And I feel there's it's still a lot of exploration on what this all means. However, the plants that I already have a connection with, that I've grown before and made medicine from, when I connect with them, they're open and they're ready to sing, and they've opened to me. So yeah, there's an interesting realm around plants where, are they aware of us, or are they aware of everything, and do they react when we become aware of them? Because we actually know that flowers give off their scent when an animal or a human comes near it. So the plants are giving off their scent to attract an insect or a human or someone to them, to pollinate their flowers, to pick their seeds, to pick their fruit and spread it. So there's a lot more intelligence in nature than we've been told. And hence, in that book, The Secret Life of Plants, there's another one called I think it's called The Hidden Secrets of Trees, where they start talking about how trees feed each other, and like the mother tree will send nutrients to a baby tree, and how, I think they one experiment was in Africa, the acacias, they're being eaten by like a giraffe. It will send messages to the other acacias, which will then start producing these bitter alkaloids to avoid the other giraffes eating them. So the instrument that plays music is that way of, like, again, with sense of hearing. When people hear something, it kind of gets their attention. So
Yeah.
that's also why I love the plants, and also playing music with them, and feeling that connection, and playing different songs with the plants.
That's phenomenal. And so as you were saying that, Kyle, what was coming to my mind, I've got 3 kids with my beautiful wife, and I see it a bit like a kid. If you're not giving the kid your time and your presence, they kind of shut off, and they obviously develop beliefs, as well as we know, eventually, like, I'm not worthy of being heard, or like all this other stuff. So as you were sharing that, I'm wondering how much of that is true for plants as well. Like, they're taking on that thing of, but maybe not with the human meanings, obviously, but yeah, that's fascinating. I find that's just so incredible. And I told my wife about this, and she's like, oh my goodness, we have to get one of those things to listen to our plants, because it's interesting. We've really felt drawn toward plants more so. It's sort of been a transitional thing. And even this conversation, like, I wouldn't have once had this conversation, Kyle, but I feel just like such a fascination for it. I such a curiosity for it, like almost a calling. And, you know, I love cacao, like, and I think that's what really connected me with you, was the cacao. And I've been drawn to cacao on a deeper level, like I found a real connection, a deeper sense of spiritual connection through cacao as well. And you spoke so beautifully about the cacao plant. So could you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of cacao, and really the sacredness of this plant? Could you educate everyone? Because you were saying, even if it's through like a Cadbury's block of chocolate, it's still the cacao plant. Like, it was just totally new to me. So could you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. And there is that piece around the Cadbury's or the Nestle, and there's a lot of what I'd also call like noise in the cacao space around. Well, I suppose in any kind of group, we come together, we see the sacredness of something, and then all of a sudden people are like, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. And as a chocolate wizard, like, throughout my whole life, whenever I've come across a religion or something that says I can't do something, I've left it. You know, I've moved away. So I'm not about telling people what they can and can't do with things. However, it's looking at what does cacao do? So what was the feeling you first had, or who's the first person that gave you chocolate? Right? And like, it's that feeling, it comes from love, like just in that experiential feeling of it. And then with the practicalities of it, it's a food. Like Theobroma cacao, when you look at the Greek origins of that botanical name, which was named by I think it was a Swedish botanist, but Theo is God and Broma is food in Greek origin. So he named it food of the gods. And
Wow.
back in those days, a lot of the botanists and stuff were actually monks that were part of the churches. And so for someone who's, religious, and from coming from the religious background, to speak of God is like blasphemy. So for this botanist to actually name something food of the gods, there had to have been something special there. So we bring in that little essence of spirituality and practicality. You mentioned about the military, and this is an interesting piece. I think it was World War II. I think it was like 98% of the cacao production in the US and the chocolate made was for the military, because it is such a nutritious food that keeps people going and can just be put in the knapsack and taken out. And I know a few like chocolate makers in Australia, and some of the bigger ones were saying that there's these bunkers in Australia and there's like food that's stored in there. And then there's this certain chocolate that's in those storage packs.
That's so interesting, brother. All the ration packs in the army, every single one of them had a little block of chocolate.
Yeah, and, that's right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. When you're out in whatever and you have that bit of chocolate, oh my goodness. Yeah. I love what you're saying, brother.
Yeah. So there's chocolate for me, like, I know a lot of herbs, and it just brings it back to this like practical connection. And when we look into the history of it, we're looking at like the Olmec societies, so the Aztecs, the Mayan, those guys utilizing it as a food, a medicine, a sacrament, which I'll get to, and a currency. So they would trade. Farmers would pay their taxes in cacao beans to the king, and like kings like Montezuma he was like buried with more cacao than gold. So it has that value, and they revered it for its magical properties. So they do magical rituals with it, which back then, some I won't go into the details of that, because it can go into deeper processes around like different wars and sacrifices and things like that. However, all societies do have that. So when we look at a substance that people were connecting with for magical properties or spiritual or sacramental applications, what I've found is that chocolate is something that, when we look at that plant consciousness, okay, of a plant essentially producing flowers to be pollinated, producing seeds, and then a fruit to spread the seed so more of the plant can grow. Like that's a kind of like a base need of even cells in our body, in the mitochondria, want to like reproduce, repair, and like reject old things. So this plant has already spread its seed in the form of chocolate to every corner of the globe and situated itself in everyone's heart. So everyone loves it. So that in and of itself is already, if you like, a spiritual practice of gifting chocolate for love, whether it's on Valentine's Day, or when we start to look at, again, with the religion as our most marketed spiritual belief system is religion. And we look at Christmas and we look at Easter, and people are eating lots and lots of chocolate. So it's already in there. It's like it's an expression of love. So if we go more into like the spiritual energetics, what I found is what cacao does is it opens our hearts. It also opens our intuition, and it's quite grounding. So when people start looking into different medicinal and spiritual plants and different societies that consumed these plants for certain rituals, whether it's in the Amazon with ayahuasca, or in Africa with iboga, or Mexico with mushrooms, people were using them for healing. And yes, they had these, if you like, hallucinogenic or psychedelic experiences. But even if you look at the scientific words in that, it always looks into like wonder in one's mind, or to connect one with God, like entheogens is entheo, like connecting with God. So that's really going on to that far end of spirituality with plants. And there's a lot more research now, even with psychoactive plants or entheogenic plants, with like research on mushrooms and LSD and things like that for people that are like got anxiety before they die. So this research is helping people relieve that anxiety, giving them that experience of what may be on the other side. So that was just to take it on that breath of like sacraments and using things with intention, whether that's in a hospital setting or around a fire. Cacao has that reverence, and it has been utilized in history for that. And something that I found really important about cacao and how it's situated itself in our society is that when you utilize cacao with intention, what she does is the cacao, if you like, we're talking spiritual here, the spirit of cacao will align you with your path. So it will take you on your journey, which is in the day-to-day life, in the, if you like, this version of the dreaming, whereas these other plants can potentially take you on this, this out of worldly journey, and you've got to come back and integrate it. Or people who have explored with things in the past, even with cannabis or mushrooms, and might have had bad trips, it can be a thing to come back to integrate. Whereas chocolate, cacao does it in our waking state.
Wow, I love that.
Which is really, really beautiful. And if you don't use it with intention, it just makes you feel good. So it's a really, in my eyes, it's a really forgiving plant to play with and bring in. So how people can utilize that is, if you like dancing, take a moment to smell cacao as a piece of chocolate before you eat it, and then dance and see how different you feel when you dance with that. If you're an artist, like paint or write, or I even say, for especially with like the cacao we've produced, which is like a really like high focus, high performance. If you're going to work and you're going to make videos and you're going to be creating content, have some cacao, do that and get into it. It really does come from the heart. So it's what you love doing. So I feel like every plant has a spiritual use. For example, I would say that coffee is more like get shit done, this really masculine, get it done. Whereas cacao is a bit more of a feminine, creative. You still get there, but you kind of dancing on the way. So they are very similar in their phytochemistry as well. They have a similarity, coffee and chocolate as well.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I love both of those things.
Both of them are great.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother, thanks so much for breaking all that down. That's so incredible. And I love how you said that, cacao is something that, because to be honest with you, like the idea of some of those psychedelics and stuff like kind of freak me out. And personally, I don't have an interest in those things as such. And I respect them, and I love that some people, find so much healing and so much clarity through them. But for me, like I guess I love that thing of maybe it's a control thing. Who knows what it is? But I like to feel that I don't actually know how to articulate this in the right way, but I like to feel that I can do it myself without having to rely on something too external. If that makes sense. But again, I respect it, and I don't know what life is like with that stuff, so I can't actually really have an opinion on it. But for me, cacao right now is something that I can use, and I guess it works for me. It works for me on a really high level, and I get very inspired seeing other people integrate it into their life. And so one of the reasons I wanted to connect was to, again, educate people around the benefits of it, especially in this time where there is a lot of disconnect. Like people are confused and they're like, which way do I turn? Just something as simple as cacao, chocolate. But ideally, a really great quality cacao, such as the one you create, brother, that would just be so phenomenal in people's lives.
Yeah, and it's why, like, I also brought to my attention was, my mum's also a yoga teacher, so yoga and meditation's been in my life for a long time, in the herbs. And what I found is when I talk about meditation or yoga, people kind of listen, or even herbs, but they kind of glaze over after a while.
Yeah.
Whereas when you say chocolate, people, it gets their attention. So
True.
it's the perfect excuse. It's the perfect reason, let's say, to have time with yourself. So it's like, go meditate. People are like, oh, I don't have time to meditate. Here's some chocolate. Have a piece every day and meditate. That. You mean I can have a piece of chocolate every day? And it's like you get the reward before you do it. So on a simple basis, there is that, and I think it's such an amazing intelligence that a plant has developed these properties. And when we look at different, like science starts to show what are the different compounds in the plants, and the research in cacao is starting to show that there is compounds that do help us dream, like increase melatonin, and on those like the tryptamines, and increase our euphoria with like phenylethylamines that are contained in the cacao, as well as all the nutrients and vitamins. And this is similar with the psychoactive plants, where I don't feel like everyone needs to go and do all these things, and allow us to research them, allow us to research nature to see where they're best and most practical, and allow everyone to have the choice to, I guess, explore their own mind. And people can experience that through meditation. People can experience that through breath work. You can experience it through walking through an amazing forest. Like someone who's never been to a forest or seen a waterfall is going to have this amazing experience from the energy. Like we talk about the energy and the vibration, right? Yeah. Everything holds a certain frequency. It's same as like in church, you know, and I say to people, when people have these like amazing experiences in church, it doesn't surprise me, because the building's holding the energy of all these people that have been praying and celebrating and sharing. So when you walk into a church, especially when like walk the Camino in Europe, these old, like hundreds of year old churches, you walk in them and you can almost feel tears welling up, or this essence, and you can get that from a forest. That's what the pagans and that have their natural churches, and in a forest are walking through the jungles. There's an experience that we can have. So there is this connection bring it back to cacao, where the mythology of cacao, one of the stories says that cacao was gifted to man, or the Maya, at a time where man started to take more from the earth than he was giving back, or had lost its connection. And cacao comes to reconnect man with the earth. And I like to say that it connects us back to ourselves, and it connects us back to the earth. It's a beautiful foundation to start from, in a functional spirituality, essentially, where there really isn't any wrong way to do it. Like if you're doing it and you're present with it and you're practicing it, it's good for you.
Yeah. Such a great conversation, brother. And I love that you've spoken into that. Could you talk into quickly about, for someone who maybe has been on a growth journey for a while now, and they still feel like there's another level, they still feel like, and obviously there's another level for all of us, I get that, but maybe people still they've not found a sense of peace within them. And they're looking at these different things, like they're looking at different herbs that they could potentially experiment with. And maybe they are curious about trying some of the higher level herbs, I might call them, where they can have different experiences. When should people, is there a time people should avoid doing that stuff? And what would be the wrong intention when looking to that stuff?
I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is always set and setting. And you can see this in a lot of the literature around these topics, is making sure you're in the right headspace, you're in the right settings, you're in the right place, like a safe place to practice. And this, whether it's cacao or it's ayahuasca, it's these same things. Also who you're with and what their mental state is like. And then what substance you're having. So each substance, know what you have and why you're having it, and you can have a rich experience. And then with set and setting, it is your intention. So for example, if you're feeling really annoyed, and then you go into the middle of a city, and there's cranes going, and there's like people having a fight over there, and like then you try to have this spiritual experience there. That is somewhere where it could be not as productive, not as effective. And knowing it, researching, there's so much research. So either like doing a lot of research on the topic, or finding someone to work with that can help shortcut it and like get it specific for you. So yeah, I would also say like escapism. So like trying to do something to escape isn't the best intention to have. It's more,
what would that look like, Kyle? Like if someone is trying, like how would they know? Just as someone can identify that within themselves, like how would they know they're trying to escape?
Well, I call it like the running away and reaching. Like you're either reaching for something or you're running away from something. In that point where you're how you could probably know this is feeling anxious, and when you can't stop, you're just going, and you're doing something, and then you're picking something up. And in those moments, the best thing to do in those moments is actually to just like have a seat, like just sit and breathe, come back to your breath, and see what emerges and what comes up, and then being able to deal with it from there. So I would always say in those, I guess it's a challenging one to identify. Also just getting in like in a loop of needing to reach for something outside of you. So a simple one in our society would be with alcohol, right? Somebody who's drinking all the time, and then they're waking up hungover and they're feeling guilty about whatever happened, and then they're drinking again.
Yeah, true.
And noticing what experiences happen with that. So to say that would be a level of escapism. And like you were saying, like not everyone needs to reach for something as the solution. And I don't feel like the solution to anyone's problem is outside of themselves. It is always within. So I always say to people that there's many things one can do before reaching for the plants. And it's like, there is that like meditation, speaking to someone about it, whether it's friends or family, or a counselor or a coach or whatever, like reaching for those things first, speaking to another human being, expressing, then it's coming to like meditation, getting sunshine, being in nature, checking on what you're eating, who are you hanging out with, what are they talking about, like where are you hanging out with? Because if you feel like, oh, my life's a mess, and you're always hanging out with some dudes that are like really, I don't know, aggressive and like, making fun of you, or like, and no wonder you feel like that. So checking all those circumstances first, and then even moving into those like higher teacher plans, do some solid meditation, do some solid breath work. Like the amount of breath work that's happening on the planet right now is important, and it does bring on altered states. And that is just coming from the breath.
Yeah.
So that would be things that I would say for people. There's a whole lot of things for people to do. And then when you meet with these plans, you're going to get a richer experience.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing is that making sure you're coming from a place of really inspiration and creation versus the desperation, like trying to run from maybe a painful emotion or some pain in the past. Am I right in saying that? Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I'd say specifically the people that I choose, like I work with, are people who are already creatives and want to really up level their creativity or their performance. Yeah. Already have like a vision to work with. So that is one direction for that focus, for creativity, for problem solving. Like that's where we can go on that realm. Yeah. And then when it is coming to people unwell, sick, or depression or anxiety or things like that, there's a different path of like taking that responsibility first. And like a lot of clients that I've worked with who are on like pharmaceuticals, for example, be surprised how working with a professional in that scene, how your doctors will actually reduce those medications if someone asks for it. And that's where we can support with herbs. So there's herbs that can start supporting the nervous system, getting the right nutrients into the body, getting the body back in balance. So as those medications are reduced, the body's adapting to it. So we can heal the body through that process, opposed to just going, some people being judgmental. Like you said, everything has its piece. Instead of someone just saying, get off those meds, it's bad for you, and then having a relapse or
of course.
a crazy experience. So that's where the plans can also fit in. However, it is having your practice and having something new that you want to bring in, a change in routine, like a daily rich routine. So it's bringing something into your life that you're actioning. So the power keeps coming back to you. You did that. It's not that herb that did that or that thing that did that. Because I've experienced people taking all herbs and all things and their mindset not being right or their lifestyle not being right. And the herbs don't work as efficiently. Same as pharmaceuticals,
Yeah. Okay. That's a really key point. So making understanding it's coming from you, not from the subs. And because that's where I can imagine the addictions begin, because they're it's the substance. I need more of that.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. And the piece is that we have if you like an innate intelligence in our body that pumps our heart and heals us. So if you there's this innate intelligence when you look at natural medicine that heals us. So there's something in us that allows us to heal. When you cut your hand, it heals itself.
Yeah.
And essentially these plants and everything we're putting in assist that and raise the potency and amplify the energy of that innate force.
Yeah.
So working with it is really the importance. And if we want to get really just a little bit of a cosmic jump, that essence that heals us or pumps our heart or breathes us, is that the same technology that makes that electron spin or the planet spin within this reality that we're in? So it's really tapping into whatever that intelligence is, which we can't quite say what it is. There's words that people give it, prana or chi or quintessence, more in Western alchemy, the quintessential, that essence behind all that is. So we're really looking at ways to amplify that technology or consciousness or whatever we want to use the language. So it's working with that.
I love that. So powerful. And one of the big beliefs that I have, and I try and instill in other people, or encourage other people to take on if it feels right, is that life wants us to grow. Life wants us to thrive, and that's just it. We've not been put on this earth to just suffer and experience challenge and hardship and live miserable life. We're here to flourish. We're here to thrive. Using that word that you mentioned before. And when people actually just start with that, we're here to thrive. And there's many, many different ways to thrive. And, for some people, working with someone like yourself might be exactly what they need. But we need to be open to new possibilities. We need to actually be willing to explore different avenues and not being too fixed on what we think is the right way. So I love the work you're doing, brother. And I know I could talk to you for hours, but I've got some final questions I just want to ask you. Do you believe, kind of piggybacking off what we just said, do you believe that every human being on the planet has a purpose?
That's a really great question. I think everything has a purpose, and therefore, every person has a purpose, and we get to choose what that purpose is. I like to say, especially during this chaotic time we're in, that nature always corrects itself. Nature will just keep on keeping on, and we are nature. I believe we come out of the earth. Where did we come from? Unless we came from a spaceship and we just dropped off way back when.
Yeah.
Or did we birth out of the earth, and are we part of it? Are we one with it? So in that, do we have a purpose? I feel like every individual does have a purpose on a fundamental level. It's to be a custodian of the earth. So if that purpose is to reproduce or repair or create or whatever it is, I do feel like, yeah, everybody does have a purpose. Yeah.
I love that. Be a custodian. It's the word custodian.
Custodian's a word I like to use. Yeah. Like let's decolonize the earth and become custodians of it.
Can you actually articulate, like break down what that word means? Like, again, pardon my ignorance.
Custodian, someone who takes care of something.
Okay.
Is a custodian. So someone who cares for the plants. So looks after it. Like there's stories also of like when they've looked into, like, say, the Amazon jungle, everyone thinks it's just this wild jungle. But when we actually look into the thing of it, it was planted. Like it's been planted and looked after by the people that were there. It's not just this wild jungle. The people there look after it. They chop down things like, I don't know if people have watched Fantastic Fungi, which is a new documentary that's out. It's amazing about like the healing of mushrooms. And this is all mushrooms, from like edible mushrooms to the forest and how they break it down. It's on Netflix now, which is really great.
Wow.
It's showing like how a tree falls down and then the mushrooms grow, like the mycelium or mold grows on it and breaks it down. And then from that, you got fertile soil, and then new trees grow out of it. So everything in nature's system has a purpose. And when we look at the custodianship of that with humans can walk around and like chop down trees. And similar to like the wolves, I don't know where that was in America, where they put them back into one of these national parks where they'd hunted all the wolves, and there weren't animals and there was drought and the rivers had stopped. And when they put these wolves back in the national park, everything started coming back into harmony, and trees started growing. And so it brings balance back, because when we're taken out of a system, the system starts to, what do you say? Like, it needs to adapt in a certain way. So being custodians, as humans, we have the ability to like seed consciousness, if you like. So we can choose and we can create and we can see things and make changes. So being custodians is doing the right things for our society and for ourselves. I
love that.
Yeah, that would be the one.
That was an awesome explanation. Like I kind of got the gist of what you meant, but I wanted to hear it come from you. So thank you for explaining that. And I love that about the wolves, how phenomenal.
Yeah. And there's actually a thing around the coyotes as well. Not coyotes, the dingoes in Australia, and how there is a big movement to actually get the dingoes back, because they're actually also like an apex predator.
Okay.
So these apex predators like wolves actually are custodians of land. So they won't just go and kill everything. If there's too many kangaroos eating the grass and eating all the sprouts, then they'll hunt the kangaroos. And if then there's too many things digging holes, they'll keep things in check. I mean, now people see them as like, oh, wild dogs or whatever. And it's just because of how the system currently is. However, like it's finding which pieces work. And as humans, we can make that choice. We can go, okay, cool, we're going to allow the dingoes back in. Okay, we're going to reintroduce herbs into our system. We're going to we can be custodians of the planet, and that can come in many ways. So for the children, for the plants, for everything. And it's really taking that step into what is the best thing and what can we do to bring the system back into balance quicker.
I love that. So really just living in harmony as much as possible with the earth, as opposed to trying to change it so much. That's what I'm hearing.
Everything wants to find balance naturally, right? Everything comes from the same source and wants to find balance. And we can either be part of doing whatever we think is right, or we can see what the balance is and how can we speed up the homeostasis and bringing things back into balance, which it kind of looks like the Earth's in that phase of coming back into balance, in my view. And what are the things that we can do to amplify that? Because with or without us, it will find its balance.
I 1,000% agree with what you just said. I fully believe that it is coming back into balance in the most beautiful way, kind of a chaotic way, but sometimes that's, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I love this. Where can people find you, Kyle, and get in contact with you and maybe even explore working with you? What's the best way for people to get around everything you do?
Everything really would be Facebook. So Kyle Laz, Instagram, Kyle Laz7. And then I do also have a website, www.kylelaz.com. You can check out there, send me an email, send me a message. And just say, hey, that would probably be the best way.
Incredible. And you've also got the Flower of Life cacao. Is that a different one again?
Yeah. So Flower of Life cacao is our herbal cacao. So it is infused with botanical herbs that increase adaptation, endurance, stamina, gives you more energy. And over time, so Flower of Life cacao, that's more Flower of Life cacao.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come up the right way.
Oh, beautiful. I love that.
Well, it's a bit.
I can there we go. That's the one.
The Joy Proximity blend. And that has that rhodiola that I was speaking about before and mucuna. So the beautiful thing about herbs as well, which I just like to add before we go, is that I see it as kind of like the herbs are like software for our bodies. So the more we have them, the more they strengthen our bodies. Unlike just having a drug in a tablet, which is like, we want this to work straight away. It works and builds over time. So over time, when having, say, adaptogenic herbs, over time, you'll find that you're adapting to stress more. So it reduces stress, increases energy, increases stamina. So the more you have, the greater the effect. I'm not saying like drink a whole bag. I mean, like it is spread out. So putting it as part of your daily routine as well. So that's Flower of Life cacao is also bringing more joy to the world and joy in what we do. Because you would know as well, when we wake up joyful, when we bring joy to our world and joy to our family, everything thrives a whole lot better.
So true, brother. So true. I'm definitely going to order some cacao off you very, very soon. I'm so excited, especially with those different adaptogens and things you've got going on in them. And I guess the way people can look at this is it's like getting compound interest on your health, like continually putting these things in your body. It's always serving you. And I'm so grateful that you've followed your heart, Kyle. I'm so grateful that you've gone after what inspires you. And I understand that requires bravery. It requires commitment. Requires a lot of faith and trust. So I'm celebrating you for stepping so powerfully into this work and for being a leader in this space. I've got one more question I want to ask you, brother, before we wrap up. And this is the question I ask all my guests. So I want you to imagine that you got hold of the back end of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these platforms, and you got hold of these just before a meteorite hit and they got wiped off the planet. But you were able to deliver for 1 minute, you were able to deliver a message to people and speak to people directly. And everyone was watching, billions and billions of people. What would you say?
Wow. What comes to mind is I'd probably ask people a question, and that is like, what is it that you're grateful for, and what do you want right now, and how can you support everyone else? That's I just ask those questions essentially.
I love that. So bring them into balance through gratitude, and then focus on impact and contribution.
Yeah. I think that's what I would do while I was watching a comet come to to take everything out. That would be the piece around that. Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up? Anything you want to share, speak, and do before we close up?
Just wanted to thank you for reaching out. It's been a great chatting. Also, I love the work that you're doing, and it's so great to be around people that are inspiring others and helping people move through, especially in these times. And what I would love to do is actually like after this, I can create a little like discount code for Flow of Life specifically for your listeners. So for anyone who's listening, maybe you can put it in the link.
Definitely, we'll absolutely
and people can get like a 10% off, and we can send everyone some of the joy, especially in these times. And we have a little ritual and stuff with it. So all the things you're talking about with cacao, there are bits that come with the cacao that will allow people to come into that connection and deeper connection with it and thrive and grow. And so, that's what I'd love to offer you and offer your listeners as well.
Brother, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know that's going to be greatly received. Kyle, again, thank you for all the beautiful work you're doing, mate. Thank you for the beautiful offer. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you for just being a great example to so many people, and through, empowering people through these beautiful herbs and plants that are available to us. So much gratitude for you, mate. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nash. It's great to be here. Thank you.